Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Red Alert lab. This is the video number 40. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have been working for about 9 videos on how to secure Windows Server 2019 based on the recommendation of the Department of Defense and the Defense Information System Agency of the United States. We have discussed a lot of concepts to secure Windows Server 2019. Some of them to secure your Windows by applying some group policies. Some of them are how to secure Windows Server 2019 by disabling unneeded services and unsecure services and roles on your Windows Server 2019. Some of them are to secure your passwords, or how to use strong passwords on your Windows Server 2019, complex passwords, and some recommendations on how to secure your password and to create it and to make a standard for it, and a lot of things actually. We will continue working on securing Windows Server 2019. This is the video number 10. So let's begin from where we have ended the last time. The last time we have stopped at the recommendation of Windows Server 2019. Windows Defender Smart Screen must be disabled. What is Windows Defender? Windows Defender, it is a product launched with the Windows 10 and Windows Server 2019 operating system. This product consists of two things: Windows Defender as a firewall and Windows Defender as an antivirus. Okay, so here we are talking about the Windows Defender as an antivirus. There is an option in the Windows Defender antivirus called Smart Screen. Smart Screen protects systems from programs downloaded from the internet that may be malicious or that may be not known, or it is suspected to be a virus. So this is an option that will be enabled on your browser. So basically the Edge. Okay, so if you have a browser Edge and you try to download a program from the internet and the Windows Defender thinks it is malicious, it will block it. Not the Windows Defender itself, but a part of the Windows Defender called the Smart Screen. It will give you a warning if you try to download something from the internet and it was not safe. And actually there is another option called Windows Defender Smart Screen. It is the same option, but it will also prevent not downloading only, but if it suspects that there is a program that you try to install on your PC, it is unsafe, it will block it as well. So it will block the download and block the installation if it finds something suspicious. So let's configure this through the group policy. As I said before, it will be applied to the browser, okay, to the Edge, or it will be applied to the Windows Explorer. So it can block the installation of a file if it is suspicious, or it can block the installation or the downloading of a program if it is suspicious. It will warn and prevent. So it will warn and prevent you from downloading or installing the software. We can see that we configure the same group policy from two sides, one from the Edge and the other from the Explorer. Okay, we can see here that we have two sides of this group policy. It can be configured from two ways or from two sections. Okay, here the other recommendation, or the next recommendation, that data execution prevention must be enabled. Data execution prevention provides additional protection by performing checking on memory to help prevent malicious code from running. So some viruses, it's not after you remove it, for example, you can see that it can return back. So for example, if you remove the virus and then you restarted the machine, for example, and you try to work again, you will see that the virus returned even though that you have removed it from the Windows. This happens because the virus is still saved, or it's still working from the RAM. Okay, so this is one of the methods, or one of the things called data execution prevention. It helps you to prevent malicious viruses from running from the memory. It checks the memory and see if there is any malicious code or virus running from it. So this is enabled by default when you install Windows, but we need to make sure that it is already there and working. So let's see if this is enabled or not. We need to go and check. You can check first if this option is working or not from the group policy or from the registry, but let's see if you have it already enabled from the group policy. And by the way, it is not configured or disabled. This is not configured or disabled. This is acceptable, so you can leave it as not configured and this will work. Unconfigured means it is configured, or disabled, this will also mean it is configured because it's saying turn off. Okay, so disabled means it will be turned on. So you can, if you for example see this turn off, not this one, turn off data protection, if it is not configured, then that means it is configured because it is configured by default. Or you can leave it or can make it disabled. Okay, so you can leave it not configured. Okay, then we need to continue the other recommendation, and then this is also another method called heap termination on corruption must be disabled. This is another method, okay, to help you protect your machine from infection with viruses and malicious codes that runs from the RAM. Here is saying that legacy plugin applications may continue to function when a file explorer session has been corrupted. Disabling this feature will prevent this. Anyway, the heap termination, the data execution prevention, and a couple of methods. These methods, okay, when enabled, or these options when enabled on your group policy, will help you protect your machine from viruses infecting the RAM, okay, or for programs or malicious codes running from the RAM. So here we will enable heap termination. Okay, this is one of the things also to help you protect your machine from viruses. Here is saying that legacy plugin applications may continue to function while file explorer session has been corrupted. He is saying that some programs run even the Explorer or the Windows Explorer is corrupted. This is not acceptable because when the Windows Explorer is corrupted, everything should stop. But some programs still work, so he doesn't see this as a security feature. Okay, so you need to disable it because some programs or malicious codes run even if the File Explorer or the Windows Explorer is not running. Okay, so he's saying that we need to disable this option. If the File Explorer or the Windows Explorer is corrupted, then any program should not run. Okay, so let's continue. So all of these methods, heap termination, data execution prevention, and we will see also another method, all of these are things to protect your RAM from to be infected with a virus. Okay, turn off heap termination on corruption. I have discussed this before in securing Windows 10, so here we are just repeating the process. Okay, so here let's continue, and it's also enabled by default, and this is something called File Explorer shell protocol must run in protected mode. The shell protocol will limit set of folders that applications can open when run in protected mode. Restricting files an application can open to a limited set of folders increase the security of Windows. So here is saying that this feature, okay, limits an application of the set of folders or files it can open. So it's saying that the shell protocol will limit the set of folders an application can open. Okay, limit the set of folder application can open. So for example, you have an application, and this application needs, when because it needs to run, it needs to open certain folders, he will limit the number of folders this application can open. Okay, this is something as a security feature. He's saying that restrict files an application can open to a limited set of folders increase the security of Windows. So this is a feature that will restrict the application to open certain number of files in limited number of folders. Okay, this is the feature, and he say that this increase the security of Windows. Okay, so this is called shell protocol must run in protected mode. Okay, and this is by default. It is also enabled in Windows. This is the default feature. So as we can see that all of these features, shell protocol and heap termination and data protection, all of these help you to protect your Windows from being infected by viruses. And this feature in specific, shell protocol, helps also that that programs run certain files in limited number of folders. Okay, so this also helps you to protect from viruses. Okay, so anyway, so he's saying the shell protocol will limit the set of folders that application can open when run in protected mode. Restricting files an application can open to a limited set of folders increase the security of Windows. Anyway, so we will continue. We will also use this through a group policy. So these are all methods to protect the Windows, because when we limit an application to run certain files in certain folders, this also help us to protect against malicious viruses. So for example, a malware, when it wants to spread, it will access a lot of folders and a lot of files. So when we restrict certain application to access certain folders and files, this will limit the spread of the malicious code. Okay, because he will not be able to run across folders and files. He is saying that the policy allows you to configure an amount of functionality that shall anyway no can launch. Okay, anyway, he's saying that allows you to configure amount of functionality that shell protocol you have. When using the full functionality of this protocol, applications can open files and launch the protected mode, reduce functionality. Anyway, we can have a thing called what is shell protocol. Let's open and see. Let's see here what is shell protocol. Windows shell protocol. Okay. What is shell protocol? Shell protocol will limit set. I think this is here. Used for uses the Windows shell at their shell. Windows provide desktop environment. Protected mode. Okay, saying the same. Okay, the same is said here. Anyways, so he's not giving much about the shell protocol. What is heap termination? Let's say what is data execution. Here I'm just giving you a little bit of something here. Data user prevention, security feature that monitors and protects certain pages or regions of the memory, preventing them from executing usually malicious code. This is the data execution prevention. As for heap termination, so this is also some recommendations. Heap termination. What is heap termination? Heap termination, let's see. Heap termination is misleading as a heap is getting, this is a process that is terminating once recognized the file is exposed. Just a moment. Heap overflow. Okay, let's see this one. Is a type of buffer that occurs in heap data. Okay, anyways, it's something related to the memory. Okay, so we all know what it is, and I have discussed before. So let's continue. And this is description of the shell protocol or shell protocol protected mode. So if it is disabled, then this is fine. If it's not configured, also this is fine. Okay, he's saying that if you not configure it, it will be enabled. If you disable it, it will be enabled. So there is no need to configure it anyway. Okay, so here we say the other recommendation saying that Windows Server 2019 must not save password in the remote desktop client. So sometimes when you use the remote desktop connection client to connect to a PC remotely, sometimes there is an option that you can save the username and the password that you are using to connect to the remote machine. This is not allowed. You do not save username and passwords used to connect to a remote machine on the remote desktop connection program. Saving password in the remote desktop client could allow an unauthorized user to establish a remote desktop session to another system. The system must be configured to prevent users from saving password in the remote desktop client. So we need to configure this option not to save passwords in the remote desktop client. So let's go and tell him do not allow passwords to be saved through the desktop or remote desktop client through the administrative templates, and then remote desktop connection client, and then do not allow passwords to be saved, and we need to enable it. Apply and OK, and then we need to go to the next recommendation. Here something called prevent drive redirection. What we mean by drive redirection, you can, through the remote desktop connection program, you can tell him to share your local drives with the remote machine. So for example, I have my machine X. I am running remote desktop connection manager from the machine X to connect to the machine Y. Okay, so I need my local hard disks on my X machine to be visible and accessible on the remote desktop or through the remote machine Y. Okay, how this is done? Using the remote desktop connection program. So you can use the remote desktop connection program to share your local hard disk with the remote machine. Okay, so we need to prevent this because this will expose your data and your machine to viruses if the remote machine is infected. So prevent sharing local drives on their computer clients with remote session host that they access, help reduce possible exposure of sensitive data. Anyway, this is one of the things we need to do not allow driver redirection. So we do not need passwords to be saved through the program, or we don't need also our drivers or local drivers to be shared with the remote host. Okay, or the remote machine. So here this is one of the things. And then another thing, the remote desktop server must always prompt a client for password upon connection. Okay, this setting controls the ability of users to supply passwords automatically as a part of the remote desktop connection. Disabling this setting will allow anyone to use the stored credentials in a connection item to connect to the terminal server. So there is also an option in the remote desktop connection program to log in without providing the username and password, or they will be saved automatically and entered and supplied to the system automatically, so you don't need to type them every once and then. You need to type it one time and tell him to save password. The next time you will not provide the password, he will log in automatically, okay, to the remote machine. So this is not correct. You will disable saving of passwords, and we will disable the login automatically to the remote machines. You need every time to supply the username and password. It should not be applied, or it should not be provided once. Okay, you need to supply it every time. Okay, so he's saying that you should not supply passwords automatically as a part of the remote desktop connection. Password should not be provided to the system or applied or entered by the system automatically. This should be done manually by the user. Okay, so this is also one of the things we need to disable saving of password, and to prompt it for a client password upon connection. Okay, always prompt it for password upon connection. Passwords should not be saved and provided automatically, and after providing it automatically he will log to the machine. So no, we need to every time to type the username and the password. Okay, so always prompt it for a username and the password. Always prompt it a password upon connection. Okay, so let's configure this option, applying the OK, and then let's go to the other recommendation. It is saying that remote desktop services must require secure remote procedure call communication. Okay, we need to secure the connection between the host and the guest, or between my PC and or from the PC I am working with and the PC I am connecting remotely to. Okay, so there is two parts, the one or two sides, the machine I am using to connect remotely to another machine. The connection between my PC and the remote PC, on my local PC and the remote PC, this should be secured and encrypted. Okay, so this we need to enable this option to secure the connection between my PC and the remote PC. Allowing unsecure communication expose the system to man-in-the-middle attack and data disclosure attacks. Man-in-the-middle occur when an intruder captures packets between a client and the server, or between a client and the client, or between the client and the remote client, and modifies them before allowing the packet to be exchanged. Usually the attacker will modify the information in the packets in attempt to cause either the client or the server to reveal sensitive data. Anyway, so we need to encrypt and secure the connections between your PCs and your remote PCs, especially if you are using a remote desktop connection program. Okay, so we need to enable secure remote procedure call. Okay, so let's continue, or let's activate this, or require secure RPC communication. Secure RPC communication means securing the connection between your PC and the remote PC. How to secure it? By encrypting the connection and the data sent between the two PCs. Okay, and then here is saying that we need to configure the encryption, okay, to be high. Okay, so we secure the connection, okay, by setting or secure the connection by encrypting the data. And not only this, we make the encryption to be high. Okay, so this is the next recommendation. Remote connections must be encrypted to prevent interception of data or sensitive information. Selecting high level will ensure encryption of desktop remote desktop services sessions in both directions. Okay, I think this high level means anyway, so we need to secure the connection, first of all to enable secure connection, and then to increase the encryption to high level. Okay, so now we need to continue, or to enable this option to set client connection encryption level to high. Okay, in both sides, coming from the local PC to the remote and coming from the remote to the local PC, and then the encryption to be high. We need to test all of these because sometimes maybe this will do some interruption in the connections between your PC and the remote PC. So we need to do this, or to test it carefully. here the next recommendation is to prevent attachments from being downloaded from RSS feeds. We have discussed before that RSS feeds, it is a kind of websites or a kind of service that gives you feeds or latest updates about certain subject. For example, football, for example, IT. This is a service, and actually it is mostly used by email. So you subscribe to an RSS feed to send you news or things about a certain subject regularly. Okay, and it is these feeds are downloaded by your Outlook or by your email program. Okay, so it's saying here that you need to prevent downloading from RSS feeds. Okay, you can prevent this, okay, because it is using HTTP. This kind of feeds, RSS, is using HTTP. So here is saying that you should not use this service at all. So for example, I have used this RSS feed to download some subjects related to the IT. I subscribe to it and I downloaded by my Outlook program. This is not correct. You should prevent using this feature at all. Okay, attachments for RSS feeds may not be secure. This setting will prevent attachments from being downloaded from RSS feeds. Okay, so we need to prevent downloading attachments from RSS feeds. Prevent downloading of enclosures. We go to RSS and we need to disable downloading of enclosures from RSS feeds. This is the next recommendation. And then here is saying also that you should disable basic authentication with RSS feeds. So for example, if I go to RSS feed and subscribe to it, to let it or to inform me with the latest update on a certain subject, okay, the subscription, so I need to subscribe to the website. So after I subscribe, I have a username and a password, so I need to every time to communicate or to authenticate to the RSS website, so I can download the feeds or the news or the latest news. This authentication, providing the username and passwords, are sent to the website in clear text. It's not encrypted. So the connection from my PC to the RSS website, it is not secure, it is not encrypted. Okay, so this is also one of the things we need to this is done using HTTP, which is not secure. We need to disable this. We need to disable authentication, especially authentication to the website of RSS using HTTP. Authentication, it is the process of verifying your username and password used on the website. Okay, so basic authentication use plain text passwords that could be used to compromise the system. Disabling basic authentication will reduce this potential. Okay, so let's continue and see. Here is saying that turn off or turn on basic authentication over HTTP. This is we need to disable it, not enable it. Okay, so this is one of the things. Okay, don't use RSS feeds completely. Okay, this is not, it's not a feature used anymore, or it's not secure anymore, so don't use it. Okay, the next recommendation is prevent indexing of encrypted files. What we mean by indexing? Indexing, it is the process of listing and ordering and putting in order all of your files on your machine. Something like indexing we mean by reordering and listing all of your files, for example, in alphabetical order, for example. Okay, so this is normally used by Windows. It indexes and order your files or reorder your files so you can easily search and find them. Okay, so this should not be done to the encrypted files. So the encrypted files should not be included in the indexing of the Windows, because the hacker can know their location and their place from the indexing of the Windows or the listing of the Windows. So we need not to index the encrypted files because they are very secure and very secret. So this should not be listed by the Windows. Okay, if you need to search and find your encrypted files, you can do this manually by yourself, or you can memorize the location of the encrypted files, not to search them through the Windows search. Okay, so we need to prevent indexing of encrypted files. So let's see this. We need to go and the search and disable allow of indexing encrypted files. This should be done from the search. Okay, all of this we have discussed before. Some of these recommendations we have already discussed when we were securing Windows 10. Okay, so we are just repeating the same recommendations again. Okay, because this applies to Windows 10 and Windows Server. Okay, so we need to tell him allow of indexing encrypted files to be disabled. Okay, apply and okay, and then we need to go to the other recommendation. Windows Server must prevent users from changing installation files. So we all know that a standard user cannot install a program. Okay, but what if he can install a program? Okay, then he should not change the installation options. So for example, when you install a program, he gives you a default installation options. For example, the program should be installed in C program files, certain options should be configured automatically. All of these are called default installation options. If I give a user the option to install a program, he should not play with the default installation options. Okay, only this could be done by the administrator. Anyway, a standard user could not install by any means any program or play with any installation files. So installation options for application are typically controlled by administrators. This setting prevents users from changing installation options that may bypass security features. Okay, so a user can change the installation folder from C program files to another one. This is not secure. Okay, anyway, so we need to go and activate this option. Anyway, a standard user could not install programs anyway, but if you give a standard user, for example, the ability to install programs, he should not play with the installation options. Or if you want to delegate installation for some users, they should not play with the installation or default installation options. So allow user control over installs are disabled. So here allow no, this is not the one. Yes, this is it. Disable. Allow user control over installs, disable, and then we need to continue. Here you must disable Windows installer always install with elevated privileges option. We all know if a standard user or a standard user is not authorized to install programs or run programs, okay, especially install programs. Okay, so there is an option called elevated privileges. If a standard user try to install a program and he is not authorized to do this, he will be prompted for a screen or the user account control, okay, will pop up asking for a username and the password that have the rights to install a program. Normally this is the local administrator. Okay, we should not enable this option. If a standard users try to install a program, he should be blocked and he should be given an error that you are not authorized, and that's it. He should not be given a window asking for an authorized user to install the program, because this is very critical thing to do, because this could make a malicious person's application gain control over the system. Okay, because for example, if this is done and me as an administrator have provided the username and the password for him, my username and password be saved to the machine, and this will allow a hacker to get it. Okay, simply, if you need to install a program, you need to log off the standard user, log in with your account, and then install the program. But do not use the elevated privileges option, because this will let my password and username saved to the account of the standard user. So if an hacker hacked the standard user account, he can get his username and password and my username and password. Okay, so we should not do this. We need to disable completely the elevated privileges option. Okay, always install with elevated privileges. This should be disabled. I need to see here how much time we have worked now. I think this is 35 minutes. We have a lot of time. Okay, so then we always install with elevated privileges. So let's continue, and then here is saying that users must be notified if a web-based program attempts to install a software. Sometime, for example, when you access a website, okay, and for example it needs Adobe Flash to run some contents on the web, to run some contents. For example, if a server or a web server or a website need to run certain animation on your browser, and it should appear for you, you should have Adobe Flash, for example, installed on your browser. So it will notify you that to see the animation on the website, you need to install the Adobe Flash, and it prompts you, for example, to accept the installation of the Adobe Flash. It gives you the Adobe Flash, or it tries to install the Adobe Flash on your browser, okay, and it gives you should give you a prompt, okay, should prompt you to install the Adobe Flash to see the content or the animation content on the website. Okay, so we say that if any site need to install a certain program in your browser or in your machine, you should be notified. Web-based programs may attempt to install malicious software on your system. Ensuring users are notified if a web-based program attempts to install software allows them to refuse the installation. Okay, this is behavior is for Internet Explorer. This is the default behavior. Okay, this is for the Internet Explorer, by the way. I think for the Edge also. Anyways, no one uses the Internet Explorer anymore, so this, I think also it is enabled by default on maybe Firefox or Google Chrome. So I need to prevent Internet Explorer or to notify, let the Internet Explorer notify us when there is programs try to install through web servers. Okay, so this is disabled. Then we need to continue working. Must disable automatic sign in the last interactive user after system initialized restart. So for example, this is an option. For example, if you have some Windows updates, okay, and the Windows tell you that it need to install these updates, okay, it install the updates and then restart the machine, and then after that it logs in automatically for you, and then you can see your desktop. Okay, this is a very critical thing we do not need to do. If there is any Windows updates installed and the machine is restarted, you need to supply your username and password to access the PC again. Okay, not to leave this or to sign in automatically. Windows can be configured to automatically sign in the user back in after a Windows update restart. Some protections are in place to ensure this is done in a secure fashion. However, disabling this will prevent the caching of credentials for this purpose and also ensure that the user is aware of the restart. So, for example, if the Windows updates are installed and the machine are restarted and the user are logged in automatically, the user will not know that there is any update is done. But if he is prompted to provide a username and a password, then that means that he will know that the machine is restarted. Okay, so we need also to configure this option. So let's go and configure this option to disable automatically sign in after a system initiated restart. You need to do this from Windows login options. This is the one we need to disable this option. Apply and OK. We need to continue working with the other recommendations. Here, Explorer Preview Pan must be disabled for Windows Server 2019. A preview pan, that it is something in the Explorer or the Windows Explorer you can view the contents of the file without opening it. It's called preview pan. This is, let me show you all what is the preview pan. If you open this, there is two things. If, for example, open this one, we have something here called, let's get here, something called detail pans and preview pan. So let's open the preview pan. If I open this, for example, I open this one, okay, for example, but let me get to some pictures. For example, if we go here and open this one, for example, or open this file, here you can see that if this is a Word file, for example, if I'm opening a Word file or I'm just clicking or selecting a Word file, the contents of the Word file will be previewed here in the preview pan. Okay, and we have something called detail pan. Detail pan here gives you also, when you click on a file, it gives you some info about the file, the date modified, the size and things. So you do not need to open the file to see its contents or to know data about it. This is very, very critical, because some viruses can spread by using the preview pan. So for example, if this is a virus file and you click on it and you are activating the preview pan, then the virus will open or it will be spread. So you need to disable details pan and preview pan to prevent viruses from spreading, because they can use this method to spread. Okay, so let's go and configure both to disable preview pan and detail pan. Okay, to always hide, turn off preview pan, enable, and to turn off detail pan. Okay, we need to disable both. One of them is to turn off or to enable to turn off preview pan, and the other is to hide the detail pan. Okay, and this is done from the user's configuration, not from the computer configuration section in the group policy. So we need to go and activate the option File Explorer, and then Explorer pan, turn off preview pan. We need to enable, and then turn on or off detail pan. We need to enable and tell him always hide. So this is one option. And turn off preview pan. So we need to do both. Turn off preview pan, and then the next recommendation, just wait for a moment, the turn off preview pan, we need to do it. Okay, turn off preview pan and then tell him enable. Okay, and then the next recommendation is to tell him PowerShell script block logging must be enabled. So if the hacker used the PowerShell, okay, to execute some attack on your machine, we need to log these commands that he used to hack the machine, so we can investigate what he have done. So this is an option to enable more logging of PowerShell commands on your machine in the event viewer. So PowerShell blocking script block logging must be enabled. Okay, maintaining an audit trail of system activity logs can help you identify configuration errors, troubleshoot services disruptions, and analyze compromise that have occurred, compromise if there is an hacker, as well as detected attacks. Audit logs are necessary to provide a trail of evidence in case of a system or network compromisation. Collecting this data is essential for analyzing the security information assets and detecting signs of suspicious or unexpected behavior. So here is saying that enabling PowerShell script block logging will record detailed information from the processing of PowerShell commands and script. He is concentrating more on executing of PowerShell commands and script. This can provide additional detail when malware has run on a system. Okay, so this is very critical to enable more detailed logging of using of PowerShell commands and scripts. So we will turn on PowerShell script blocking logging. Okay, so all of these are to secure your, not to secure, to monitor also and get more info when an attack is done. Okay, so PowerShell, and then we need to turn on PowerShell script block logging, and then we need to continue other recommendations. Here is saying that Windows Remote Management client must not use basic authentication. What is Windows Remote Management? This is an option that we use to connect remotely to a machine. It is not like remote desktop connection program. This is not a remote desktop connection session. Okay, this is a different way. We all know, for example, I'm using from the beginning of this lab something called Windows Admin Center. This is a way that we can connect to the machines remotely. The Windows Admin Center uses the Windows Remote Management protocol. Windows Remote Management is a protocol used to connect to other machines remotely. Okay, so this is how the Windows Admin Center connects. It connects to the machines remotely using the Windows Remote Management service or protocol. So when the Windows Admin Center connects to a machine remotely using the Windows Remote Management, the process of authentication and connection, or especially the authentication of my machine to the remote machine, it is not secure. It is using basic authentication. Okay, so basic authentication uses plain text passwords that could compromise the system. So for example, if I'm using my Windows Admin Center to connect to my server, so I open the Windows Admin Center, click on the server, and then I should provide a username and a password to connect to the server. So the password sent from my machine to the remote machine, it is sent in plain text. It's not encrypted. So the connection between my machine and the remote machine should be secure and should be encrypted. Okay, and the authentication to the remote machine should be done in a secure way. So my username and password that is used to connect to a remote machine, it should be sent to the remote PC, okay, or server. It should be set in encrypted method, not in plain text. So we need to disable basic authentication when we are using Windows Remote Management client. So we need to do this. We need to go and disable, or we need to disable allow basic authentication when you are using Windows Remote Management protocol or client. Okay, so we need to go this, and we need to do this. We need to configure both sides, the client and the service. Okay, so we need to do both. We need to disable allow basic authentication, and then, as I said before, so the authentication, the password and username should be encrypted, and the data sent between my PC and the remote PC should be also encrypted. So unencrypted remote access to a system can allow sensitive information to be compromised. Windows Remote Management connections must be encrypted to prevent this. So we need also to do this. We need to encrypt the whole connection between my PC and the remote PC, not only the authentication, not only the username and password. Okay, so allow unencrypted data, we should disable it. Okay, this should be done from the client side and from the service side. Okay, here also is something called digest authentication. So this is basically like the basic authentication. Digest authentication, it is also sending the username and the password to the remote PC, not in plain text, but it is not using a strong encryption method. Okay, so we should disable digest authentication. Okay, we can use Kerberos. Okay, this is something more secure to encrypt your username and password. Okay, anyway, so we need to disable digest authentication. So you need to disable digest authentication. This all are done from the client side. There is another one from the service side, or from the protocol side. We will do the same group policies, okay, from the service side, not from the client side. We have the WinRM client and the WinRM service. Okay, so the service should use encryption and the client and server should use the encryption. Okay, so we can do this. We need to enforce, or we need to force the two sides of the equation, my PC and the remote PC, to use encryption, and the service itself not to accept, okay, any connection that it is not encrypted. So for example, if a client doesn't accept the encryption and the other client also doesn't accept the encryption, the service of the WinRM will not open from the start. So the service should accept or should enforce encryption, and the clients should accept encryption. Okay, so we need to enable both, okay, from the client and from the service side. Allow unencrypted traffic to be disabled, and this is something. And then we need to Windows service must not store run as credentials. Storage of administrative credentials could allow unauthorized access. This allowing the storage of run as credentials from the remote management will prevent them from being used with plugins. So he's saying that your passwords should not be saved on the remote machine. Okay, so storage of administrative credentials could allow unauthorized access. This allowing of storage of run as credentials from the Windows management will prevent them from being used within plugins. So it's basically saying do not save passwords on a remote machine. Okay, so we will do this. We need to disable storage of passwords. So you can store your, for example, the WinRM can store your password to be used later with other services or with other things. Okay, so anyway, we need also to disable this kind of option to disallow run as credential. Okay, so let's continue here, and then the next recommendation is to must allow administrators responsible for the domain controller to have administrator rights on the system. So must only allow administrator responsible for the domain controller to have administrative rights on the system. An account that does not have administrative duties must not have administrative rights. Such rights will allow the account to bypass or modify required security restrictions on the machine that make it vulnerable to attack. Anyway, so it's saying that system administrator must log into systems using only accounts with minimum level of authority necessary. Standard users account must not be members of built-in administrator group. So he's saying that here that you need to have separate accounts to do separate jobs. So for example, there is an account to access the server locally and solve the problems. This is the local administrator. Okay, this local administrator should not have for example local or domain rights on other machines. Okay, so this is, or what we say here, that every account should be separated. We need to have separate accounts for separate users. He is saying that, for example, system administrators must not or must log into systems using only accounts with minimum level of authority necessary. Standard user accounts must not be members of built-in administrators. So the standard user should not be a member of administrators. This is very logic. Okay. For example, we have said in the beginning that a domain admin account should not be used to access machines to solve regular problems. Domain accounts should only be used to manage the Active Directory. If you need to access the domain controller, for example, to solve a problem on it, for example, installing a software or installing or removing a software, you should use another account, not the domain admin account. You can create an account, and this account should be used to install software and troubleshoot problems on the domain controller. But you should not use the domain admin account to solve problems or to install software and programs on your domain controller. Okay, so this is what we can see here, or what he's saying here. He is saying that review the administrators group Only the appropriate administrator groups or account responsible for administration of the system may be members of the group. So you will go to the local administrator groups, local administrator group on the server, and see who are the members. Basically, there is only one member, the administrator. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so we need to check the local administrators group on every server. Okay, the local administrators group on every server to see the members. Okay, standard users should not be members of the local administrators. Prohibited accounts are members of the local administrator. This is the finding. The built-in administrator require. Just a moment. No, we need to see a little bit here or return back here. Just a moment. He's saying that the built-in administrator account or other required administrative accounts are found in the system. This is not a finding. So the local administrator should only be the member in the local administrators group. Any other accounts we should investigate and see. Okay, so he's saying configure the administrator group to include only administrator groups or accounts that are responsible for the system. Remove any standard user accounts. So we need to revise the local administrators group on every server. Okay. And then here we're saying that Kerberos user login restrictions must be enforced. This policy setting determines whether the Kerberos validates every request for a session ticket against the user rights policy of the target computer. This policy is enabled by default, which is the most secure setting for validating that access to the target resource is not circumvented. Anyway, I think we can stop at this recommendation maybe. Okay, so we will stop at this part. This is the minute number 32:49. We will continue working with the rest of the video at the next part. Hope this video is informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.